meeting to order at 6 o'clock. All board members are present. First up is review and approval of public meeting minutes from October 8th.
Motion to approve the October 8th public meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Review and approval of the October 8th public meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the October 8th public hearing minutes as presented.
Any questions about the public hearing minutes? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next up, review and approval of the October 17th public meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the October 17th public meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Carries. Our next meeting is October 29th, which is next Tuesday. It's a budget meeting, right? Budget work session here at Canterbury Elementary School. Okay, first up is public communication and correspondence. So anyone in the public from Belmont or Canterbury who would like to talk to the board, you're welcome to do that. Okay, seeing none.
Quiet night.
We'll go on to meet with Canterbury and Belmont town officials. So welcome. Thanks for coming here tonight. We want to start. Do you want to do introductions? I don't know if everybody knows each other.
I'm Kent Roswick, Canterbury.
Beth Blair, Canterbury.
Scott Doherty, Canterbury.
And I'm Ruth Mooney, Belmont. Sharon Champion, also from Belmont.
We can introduce ourselves, but we also have our name.
You've got lovely names. We've got our fancy ones too.
Oh, I didn't. That's great.
That's all I had in my purse. Sorry.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, this is the first time we've done the two towns together, so we thought it was an opportunity for us to have an open discussion related to the issues and concerns or successes related for Canterbury, Belmont, and the school district. So, where do we want to start?
As the school board, do you have anything top of your list that you'd like to bring to our attention?
I do.
Other than the obvious things, but
Oh, we can just get into the obvious. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion around the tax increase to Canterbury. And we kind of like laid out this is coming last year. And one of the things that I've really been struggling with is, and I understand that this is nothing that we can fix, but I thought that it would be like a 50-50. So it would be half of it would be in December and then the remaining half in July tax bills. And how it's been explained to me is the way we collect taxes is the July bill is 50% of the previous rate. So even though we knew that it was going to go up, there was nothing we could do. And then the whole thing is going to be in December, so it's kind of catching up with itself. This has been bugging me because, like I said, there's nothing we can do, but I'm wondering if there is something we can do to maybe communicate better in the future with the townspeople when their July bills go out to like, hey, like, we know this is coming, you should treat this as like a save extra. I don't know. But that's one of the things, because I thought for sure it would be like 50-50, similar to how it is in all years. I did not realize that when they increase like that it's all in one go.
One would only hope that you could do something as reasonable as split it 50-50 and have that
Yeah,
up.
especially since we knew it was coming for almost a year. So that's one of the things that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Is that how it works across the board? I'm asking a general question, like the increase only hits in the December tax bill if it's related to school district? I guess I'm asking because I don't know the answer to that. It's never split over two tax bills?
So the downstream impact of this, Michelle, is going to be really on people's escrow accounts. Because
Right.
they're going to have a shortage, and then come July, it's going to be 50% of the tax rate that it was in December, so it's going to be high. And then they're going to have a surplus. So like, it's tricky, but like, I feel like there's got to be like a way to make it better.
So let me ask it a different way, because I don't escrow.
I don't either.
So here's my question. Am I feeling the entire impact on taxes, any increase, only once in December?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's going to continue into next year, right? We're paying half of this year, and
Well, my understanding is next year's taxes will be normal.
Or
Half in-
more than what is needed, depending on what, I think it's all going to come down to what the need says.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But that's a good tax collector question.
should have brought Steenson with us.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of the problem all along was that we didn't have the definite numbers until much closer to the time when the taxes were going to be assessed. So it was hard to say, didn't want to give people a false sense that it was going to be too big or too small. And that timing is again out of our hands. So I don't know how to deal with that issue, but I would agree that as much heads up as we could give people would be appreciated all the way around. And, you know, we did what we could as soon as we could this year. But going forward, a better plan, if we could get one, would be good.
because I feel
I
like we
agree.
do like worst case scenario. So yeah, like I don't know what the solution to this problem. I have to imagine this has happened for years and decades, and maybe these conversations happened with people prior to us, and they came to the same resolutions. But I feel like there's an opportunity here on all ends to kind of work
Yeah,
together
and
to figure this out.
There's got to be a reason. Everything, you know, there's reasons, but that's a good question for us to
Well,
ask.
and the question is, I mean, if you yourself on the school board are not quite understanding how this works, there's going to be a lot more people that have that exact same question. And if we can explain it sufficiently to you and get that information out across the board, that can only be a good thing. So if you, I would say if you could really finalize your question and send it to us, we'll see if we can get the best answer that we can and get it out, either now or in spring, you know. If it doesn't go out with the tax bills, I would say every other communication method that we have now to get it out.
The problem is what you identified as far as escrow is, regardless of what we tell people,
Right.
there's no solution for the escrow. So
I asked someone-
people are going to get hammered, you know, come December, and then they're going to get hammered again come June when there's the deficiencies, and the banks don't care. I mean, all they see is shortage, and they say, okay, here's how you make it up. There's no the banks don't care that New Hampshire funds education.
Right.
Or either they don't care or there's nothing, again, that they can do with the formula that they've got to work with. That's their system. And we're further down the pike than that. So.
I did ask some people that have escrow accounts their thoughts on this, and they said that they could have put in additional money in anticipation of this, but they didn't.
But people knew that a substantial increase
Right.
was coming up, even if they didn't know exactly what it was. So
I
if
agree.
somebody says to you, there's a substantial increase and alarm bells start to go off, I would start putting money away, even if I didn't know how much I needed, but something's better than nothing. So,
You can take a vacation at the end of the year, probably.
yeah, if it worked out correctly,
Buy
but,
yourself something nice.
Well, I can say from experience, so I have an escrow account on my house. And my bank looks at my escrow account every year in August. And they say, oh, hey, your property taxes went up $3,000 this year, and you are this much upside down in your escrow. And so they adjust my mortgage payment accordingly to try to bring it back in line. And as a lot of people know, Belmont's been doing the evaluation. So the taxes happen in June, and then in December, and then they have to increase. And then I've got all of this time until August before they adjust my mortgage for the shortfall or the deficit in my escrow account.
but your bank is giving you a heads up FYI that this is going to happen, correct?
No, they are telling me after it happened that I owe them a big chunk of money because.
Oh, they're telling you in August.
Right,
Oh.
because in November they pay my insurance, in December they pay my taxes, in July they pay my taxes, and then they go, well, we collected this much from you because that's what my mortgage tells me. But the taxes were actually this much, and therefore now you owe us all of this money. And what they do is they divide that up by a certain amount of time, and then they increase my
Yeah.
mortgage. So that's how that works for my bank.
But if you don't know ahead of time, you couldn't have saved for that anyway, unless you knew ahead of time.
Correct.
I think we should just all assume they're going up and start saving accordingly.
I guess I am going to what I think is a basic question, but clearly it's not. When we project potentially what the tax impact is that tax impact a one-time? Does it only get realized in the December of the following year's tax bill? Or
I would think the increase would be one time, correct? Because you're going up to a certain level, but then you still need that amount of, you're talking to somebody who's not the budget person.
no, I'm just trying to figure out how to, if I don't understand it, so when Debbie presents those numbers to us and we say, okay, on a $250,000 house, your taxes are gonna go up, making this up round numbers, $1,000. No, yes, $1,000 for the year. Are we only getting that, and it could be Canterbury or Belmont, is that only hitting one tax bill? Or is it like, because we get two tax bills a year, we get half and half?
So it is my understanding that
The tax rate is like, we're waiting right now.
Right,
To get to set the rate, okay? The rate gets set, correct me if I'm wrong, the rate gets set, then the bills come out in December for that rate, and your July bill is that same rate that was set in December, correct?
Of the prior year.
Of the prior year, that's exactly right.
But you won't get that increase again because you've already.
Well, you don't know, because you don't know what the budget's gonna be.
Right,
I mean, you know, the school could stay level, the town could go up, or the county could go up. You know, there's always that. You don't know, like, we're waiting right now for the county. We haven't even heard from the county yet. And we were told they're lagging behind, whatever that means. So, we're still waiting to even get our rates set so that we can get our bills done. But when the rate is set in December, that same rate will be in July, and then the following December, it will be readjusted depending on sometimes we get monies back from the school or whatever, then that sets that bill in December.
So not only will property owners be responsible for the shortfall, but they're also going to get, then the banks also, or financial institution is going to say, okay, now we know this is how much it is, so then the monthly rate increases again.
Right, makes sense.
which is a great time to do it in December.
Yep.
But that's what exists.
Yeah, that's the formula we have.
And a lot of that, I think, is governed by DRA.
It is, they set the tax rate.
They set
Correct. Yeah.
they set the final tax
Yeah.
rate. They're waiting for everybody else, because I almost think it was DRA that told us that our county is lagging, behind. We're still waiting for that.
Yeah.
But to get back to Randy's question, which is a good one for both our towns, is how can we best let people know as soon as possible what they're facing? So if they need to, they can save. We tried our best this year to do that when we had firm numbers in hand. And
Well, we started in March
yeah,
at town meeting with not so firm numbers, but at least an idea that taxes were going to go up. And then, we've tried to publicize as we narrowed the numbers, that as well. So
I wondered if people thought like I did originally, that it would be spread out over two, because you get two bills, and then didn't realize that increase would be realized in the December bill.
Because what basically,
Yeah.
how it's going to play out with 99.9% of property owners is there was the controversy about what the total load is for the, for town and schools. They voted, the June tax bill came, and they go, oh, that wasn't too bad,
Yep.
because it wasn't being realized.
Yeah, but that
And-
that is not what we said at town meeting.
Right, but people have short memories,
Oh,
unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And again,
I don't know what we can do about that.
Right.
correct, but it's just,
That's
it's
the
just the
worst
fact
part.
of the system.
Yeah.
So now this is where there's going to be a whole renewed controversy again, come December, because of the realized, increases are now all going to come at once. And then come next June, it's based on the same increase, and it's going to be a massive controversy again. So you can tell people you say, hey, heads up, this is coming. But unfortunately, people have short memories. And it'll be all reactionary.
Well, maybe the
unfortunately.
information needs to be in a place that isn't like sending it out, having somebody remember to send it out before the tax bills come out. We now have, our website is all getting revamped, and we've got an online active town newsletter website. Maybe there's a button, your tax bill 101. If you want to know how it works, why is this bill bigger than that bill? I'd be interested in reading that. I'm sure a lot of people would, because, as you say, people have short memories. How many people out of the entire town come to town meeting? And then how much of that is actually discussed at town meeting in that sort of format? Not much. So I think that's an excellent point, that we should, make a short, sweet description of how your tax bill works, so people aren't surprised if they take the interest of hit the button and read the thing and figure out what's coming. I think that can only be a good thing. And I know just the person asked who to write the primer.
So I have a question of you guys. Can you create curriculum that could be taught in high school? Say, could you create this is how New Hampshire municipal governments work, and teach them about tax rates and voting and all of those other things that they should really learn going into adulthood?
So we currently have our civics curriculum that we're required to teach, as a matter of fact, but we've been teaching it for years and years into high school. As for the budgeting process and taxes and how taxes operate, that's not currently in the curriculum. It's how you become an informed citizen that is.
That's interesting, because we're experiencing with the influx of new residents in Belmont, okay? And we have a gentleman, one particular gentleman, you know who I'm thinking of, and he got on the budget committee last year, and he worked in Washington, D.C. and lived in Virginia or Washington, whatever. And he sits at these budget meetings, and he's trying to recreate the wheel, okay? He cannot understand why the selectmen are not telling the school, this is what you have for money, this is all you're getting. He cannot understand why we can't just cut everything across the board 10%. Just cut everything 10%. It is unreal. He comes in with a 3-page, every time. At a meeting he comes to, he was at a selectmen's meeting just a couple weeks ago. And his comment during that session was, the budget committee's gonna hate me this year, because as far as I'm concerned, everything should be cut 10%. Okay, now, we're pretty lean and mean, because obviously Belmont is in a default budget. Our budget did not pass last year. Is it gonna pass this year? I don't know. We were shocked, this is the first time ever it did not pass last year. So we have no idea. And, I look at him and say, when people need a fire truck, when they need a police officer, when they need their road plowed so these people can get to them. And now you're talking about cutting all of this. So the demographics is changing. It is changing, and people don't want to know. People still are convinced that the select board has everything to do with that tax bill. We finally started saying, this is our new saying, it would be great if you got your tax bill and you had to make a check out to the school, a check out to the town, and a check out to the county. Then people might understand what's going on. But we hear this all the time. And some of these people have lived in town forever. But the new people, they don't like the way New Hampshire's run.
New Hampshire is 100% unique
It is.
in the entire country on how they fund things.
Yeah.
So it's not well known.
Nope.
It's not well understood.
It isn't. But unfortunately, these people are coming into New Hampshire for whatever reason, okay? But they want to, we get phone calls now in town hall. They want streetlights on some back road. Why don't you have streetlights? Oh, this is rural, but yeah. They want their trash picked up, but they don't want to have to pay for it. So it is, we're seeing them all. The demographics of people moving in are changing.
All the more reason to have some 1, 2, 3, this is how it works.
Well, I think it's hard, so even, because I know that they have the expanded civics going on, the new requirements, and I got my son interviewed for it. And I was like, no, I think that it's a great idea because we all need to learn about local government. He was like, I don't know if we're going to get down to that level. But as I thought about it, if I had been taught about that in high school, I wouldn't have remembered it. Like, I didn't start attending town meetings until the past couple of years. I didn't even know what the purpose was. So, I think that it does need to be something that everybody is aware of and has access to as we age.
And unfortunately, we give out, meetings, public meetings, you put them in the newspaper, you do everything that you're legally responsible, and you'll always have one person, it's usually George, that will stand up, and say, why didn't you inform us? It's no matter what, you can't.
Well, you can't inform everybody. There will always be, but we can certainly try our level best. Yeah. It's hard when so few people show up at town meetings. But I've been really impressed. I frankly started off being amazed, and now I'm just really appreciative, since we've been recording and posting all the select board minutes, of how many people look at them. If there's 100 views at one of our meetings, I'm just astonished, because people don't necessarily show up at them. They don't show up at the meeting. And the fact that people will actually look is good. So I think there's still ways to get the information out there to at least more people than you would think, though never, ever, never the Georges of the world. Half my family's named George, by the way. I get it.
So what are the biggest drivers of what you're thinking for the town budgets this year? Things we should be aware of?
Canterbury's town.
Canterbury.
Don't spend any money. That's my simple philosophy on it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said.
You know, everybody's
Yeah.
working hard to keep it pretty flat
Yeah.
because of this.
Yeah.
Because that we do have control over it.
Right, and we're fortunate this year we do not need things like fire engines,
Right.
police cars. So I think Kent is absolutely right. We're just looking to, you know, if I have my way, you know, no warrant articles, a very flat budget. And I think that's as good as it's gonna get, so.
And it seems like the school board's trying to keep it flat too, yeah? What was it, 1.7 maybe? You're in flux.
The initial proposal was 1.69%.
Yeah.
So total was 0.93% for the total budget, so under 1%. That's
That
what
was the
that's
start.
what the board's working on
That's
now.
nice.
Well, what about Belmont? Yeah.
But we're in a default budget.
Right.
So we did not get our police cruisers last year, and they would have put in for 2 this year, so now we're fall behind, or could be fall behind. We have a tanker that's been, that's decommissioned, left town on a wrecker. So we're down the tanker, but that will be paid to our ambulance revenue fund. Typically, that's how most of the fire equipment is purchased in Belmont. And, you know, we do leases, and so that should be covered. That's really about the only 2 things that are, but, you know, the health insurance rates went up 16%. You know, we start looking at all the things that we have no control over, but as far as the budgets go, everybody's basically, I think they're relatively flat. I mean, where there's bumps is pretty.
Things like health insurance.
Yes, we don't even have our work comp and liability rates yet. We're still waiting on that, so. But I think the health insurance at this point, was pretty much the only thing that we got shocked. Well, we haven't got the other insurance rates, but right at this point, I would say that's it. But otherwise, I think most our department heads were around pretty fine.
And does the school see, I mean, your budget is flat now, but do you have anything lurking on the, or you're at the moment, it's flat-ish, let's put it that way. Do you have anything lurking? Is there any building coming up that the school needs, or staffing should be good, right? Is there anything else that we?
We don't, our health insurance rates are not final.
Yeah,
So that's,
but nothing as far as the actual physical plant, any big expenses coming down the
Like
pipe?
a new high school?
Like a new high school, like the auditorium or sound system, or I don't know, what, soccer field? I can't think of anything. Science lab?
we're trying to be flat. I mean,
Yeah,
The proposed budget the board's working off of right now is all based on the building improvements that come off of our capital improvement plan for building and grounds. So we're working off that plan. Those monies are in the proposed operating budget, but there are no large ticket items that are
nothing new, just things you've already planned for.
outside of the collective, outside of the capital improvement plan.
Good. How old is the building now?
The high school,
Yeah.
93.
93? Oh.
Seems like just yesterday.
Well, yeah, the first year started there in 99.
98.
Well, okay.
I have a question for our folks. So when you were here last year, you told us that you were seeing an increase of people moving into town without children. That it was like a huge population. Are you still seeing that?
I can't answer that exactly. I don't think we've had that conversation.
I don't
in the
remember
last.
who was here last year. That was.
Yeah, I think I was, and we did know that I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if, we haven't had it recently, but where's the school population? I mean, I don't know, what the school population has it increased?
So we've seen a slight decline over the past several years. However, this year we saw a small increase of a handful of families. We were 10 to 15 new students since this time last year.
Yeah.
Not a significant increase whatsoever. We haven't seen a significant decrease from one year to another. But overall, if you go back 10, 20 years, we're seeing a slight decline in our school enrollments, the school enrollment numbers, but that is across the state. I think it was Brody shared an article on the call on this. There was a stat that was from an article that was pretty.
By 2030, there will be more people that are over 65 years old in New Hampshire than there will be students, children.
That's why we want really well-educated kids to take care of us.
So New Hampshire's changing overall.
Oh, it is. Well, one of the good examples, the gentleman I was telling you about, he's retired. He's retired, moved here, bought a beautiful on Aiden Circle. I mean, all those homes were brand new homes, new development. They went, what, high 600s to $900,000. And I believe the whole community is sold out. Is Brimstone, that's not off from Bronco Road. That was an older development that kind of died away, right? I think there's maybe one or two lots left. I mean, it's crazy. I know that our assessor told us at one of our last meetings that the last, 6 or 8 sales, they all sold a good 25% or above assessed value, which so
The question I had was, what year are we in for the assessments?
our next assessment will be 2029 if we choose to wait 5 years. And obviously we had put on the ballot 4 years ago to have these spot checks for that reason, because if you wait every 5 years, you get these huge increases or decreases.
Yeah.
And now the problem is the homes are assessed at the point that if the market falls, people are going to be paying this amount on a home that's now really only worth this, but won't be reassessed for 5 years. So you could very well end up paying, say your home is valued at $900,000, that's what you're paying property taxes on, but in reality, you might only be able to sell it for $400,000, and there's no way of changing that. And if people need to finance, it doesn't make it very financeable. Easy to finance unless they have a lot of money to put down. Yeah. So that's a real dilemma. I know people are already talking about putting something on the ballot to continue on with these yearly
And there's really no, I guess, escaping inflation. In Belmont, we've done the spot checks for the last year. We were in the 5-year. Canterbury, I believe, is in the 5-year, and you guys are right in the middle of your 5-year. So when it comes to raising the money that the towns need for each other and for our school, we have the same problem, but at different avenues. So our property values are high, and your tax rate is higher. So
No, we're not quite the same.
But
it's 51.
what about for education there?
So this DRA will equalize the property taxes across the board. So even though Canterbury might be at 300 million, DRA is saying, okay, they really are worth 600 million. So I've used that number for the formula of how we apportion. But again, when you go back to raise the taxes, you're looking at it like it's a 600 million. This is what you need to raise, but you're only raising it on 300 million, so your tax rate is higher.
Is that only on school district?
Did they do that equalized valuation? No, they equalize valuations on various different things. They'll do it for the property without the business, property with the business.
The DRA wants you to be at 100% assessed.
Right.
Right.
And even with what we just went through the last 3 years, we're only, I believe it's 85%, 86%. So we're not even at 100% assessment. So I keep my fingers crossed that there's not, somebody down in Concord says, well, gee, they're not high enough yet. We need to come in and look at that. So that's a scary thing.
What does that mean? You have to be 100% assessed?
That's what DRA says. Your towns are supposed to be assessed at 100%.
It's what your town is worth.
What your town
If you
is
were
worth.
gonna take it and put it on the real estate market and someone was gonna buy it, it's my understanding that that's what your town is worth. I
Oh,
believe it just said we were at 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
Now, in 2019, we were only 700 and something, 700 and something million. Now we're at 1.3 billion dollars is what the town of Belmont is conceivably.
What is Canterbury assessed at? Do you know where you fall?
That's an excellent question,
But
to which I do not have a number to give you, but.
we tried to get up to 100% with doing these every year, and we get close. I think we've been as close as 97, but then 3 months later, as the real estate market goes up, that number goes back down, and we're just chasing it.
We're hoping that they just look at that we're at least trying to make we're trying to get there, but it just, the market's changing faster than the assessor can assess, I guess.
Which has my understanding that assessing more frequently is beneficial to the taxpayer because
Oh, yeah.
avoid wild swings in the tax bill.
Huge.
But you're paying for a reassessment every year. right?
Not a full reassessment, no.
Those are the ones that want to call it.
Yeah. Or sold, when the properties that are sold. And then I think that I think in our case, they looked at different groups. I think they looked at the lakefront property we had. That was one of them, yeah. So you're not paying, and then at the end of that, 5 years from now, when you have to do a little bit more in-depth, it's less money because the assessing company already has so much of the work already done. You must have a capital budget that you put money in every year for your assessment, your assessing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are the questions?
It's depressing. It really is. It's, when you're sitting on this side of the table and trying to do your best with what you've got and not, but it's like anything else. There's a lot that's out of our control. And what Kent sold his house next to me that was, we both have the same exact house and he sold his for $1 million. Now my assessment is just gonna go right out of sight because he sold his house and left town.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But that's the unfortunate thing. People don't understand that they think the selectmen are the ones that do this.
Right.
It isn't. It's all over New Hampshire. New Hampshire is prone.
well, and whether or not they actually think we're the ones who do it, we're the
Yeah,
face
right.
of the town, so.
We get blamed no matter what.
That's the first place to turn for a question. Or a complaint.
Yeah, so I know, Sharon, you mentioned that you're noticing that the town of Belmont is growing in population. I'm just curious, as a Canterbury Board of Selectmen, seeing the town of Canterbury, is there any population growth? And if
Well, it's
so,
gonna grow if that thing passes tonight, if that's your thing.
if so, what does that look like from the board's perspective?
Couldn't hear you.
And if it is growing, what does that look like from a board of selectmen perspective?
Well, like anything, we're just coming down, Kent's on the planning board, we're coming down on our master plan to try and wrestle with the growth of Canterbury. Yes, it's growing, but, I think I can say that we've taken pretty good steps to control our growth so it doesn't take us over. We don't want to become a Concord. Responsible growth, that's an excellent way to put it.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're growing, but at the moment, I think, from what I can see, and again, I'm the newbie on the block, just being on the select board since March, but from what I can see, and, the planning board is taking great steps to make sure we're growing affordably for ourselves. We have building caps, we have, we're trying to, make sure that we've got enough fire and police for what we have and for growth that's coming down. So, yes, we're growing, but we're not exploding. And by design.
Right, I think, yeah, that's, as Beth said, going through the master plan process, what we heard overwhelmingly was people do not want Canterbury to change. They want to keep the rural character as it is. From here, we're actually all going to a planning board meeting for a pre-conceptual meeting with a couple of developers. But that is a small cluster development at exit 18 on about a 35-acre parcel of land, if I remember correctly.
Is that where they wanted to put like 100 condos or 100?
You're correct. And
No, it's 40 dwelling units. is what the-
Randy's talking
Oh,
about
before.
something, probably 3 or 4 years ago now. There were a couple of developers that also came for a pre-conceptual meeting with a much larger plan, and they didn't return. We were concerned about the impact of having that many potential residents added to the town mix. And, as we have a part-time police department, a sole, we don't even have full-time fire department employees anymore, a series of part-timers. So that would be impact that we would really feel that this year.
But, again, the Canterbury residents know what we've been wrestling with is that, yeah, people don't want town to change, but people still want to live here. Kids who went to school here want to come back here. And people, think Canterbury is a desirable place and they want to move here. So we don't want to say nobody, but we want to be able to deal with it when people come. So, yeah, we're not growing fast. How about, that's the short answer, I think. Growing not too fast.
So this would be a 40 dwelling?
If it's approved.
If it's approved.
Yeah, 40 dwelling units.
They wanted 104 the last time.
Yeah, I don't think so. To me, actually, none of us knows a lot because we're about to go to the conceptual meeting tonight. So I don't know if they're targeting an audience, senior housing, or...
It's not, it didn't look like senior from the stuff we read that.
Yeah, we'll have more
letter that he
answers in
sent.
about an hour, I would expect.
But
Other questions? Any questions for us? No one can ask along the way.
I actually did have a question,
Yeah.
actually. When you guys are preparing the ballot for town meeting, do you guys get or accept petition articles from taxpayers, from voters?
Yes.
And who is the person that you work with in the district if somebody wanted to do one of those?
Any petition warrant articles going directly to the SAU office. We get it from all
So bring it to you. Okay.
everybody to us.
Somebody asked me that a couple weeks ago.
And there's a deadline.
Yeah. They know that. Do you know what it is?
The last day for petition warrant articles is January 14th.
Awesome, thank you. You're welcome.
so actually, while I'm thinking of it, we've talked a lot about the increase in the school portion of the tax bill and, people being concerned and people getting out in front of it. Mike, have you had many calls? We were kind of surprised when we put out all the information that we did, that as a select board, we didn't get a lot of calls, but I know you were very generous in saying, call you. What kind of call volume did you get?
One.
Really?
Yes.
It's interesting.
Maybe the communication was so good that people had no questions.
Well, and the calls that came in were questions. They were not angry people. And when they were explained, they were like, okay. I'm thinking, what? I was expecting a much bigger hue and cry, so.
Angry people go to Facebook.
That's true too.
We wait for the December tax.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true too.
That, just as Ruth was saying earlier, our one phone calls from someone who's new to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Didn't understand how taxes were set.
Interesting. And Greta, what was the study you were citing that by 2030 more people over 65? What study was that, please?
It was actually in, do you know the Piffle newspaper?
Yeah.
Okay. The very first page, there's some snippets
Yeah, yeah.
of articles. It was there.
Ah,
But I can probably get that for you. It was probably 4 weeks ago now. One of them was like 4 weeks ago.
okay.
It was an interesting.
And you don't remember the source? I mean, the source probably wasn't Hippo News, it was,
Right, but it does normally list the source
Okay.
on the bottom.
thank you.
But it was 2030, which isn't that far.
No, it's not that far away. Interesting.
And the thing with that that's scary is, I look at our ambulance. We have 2 ambulances, they're going all the time. They're nonstop. They're going all the time. And again, of course, we do I'll say the northern end of Canterbury. We take care of up around those corners, that, and I hear it going that way because there are a lot of elderly people that live up around that area. But, I always say we're more of an ambulance service than we are a fire department because they're just going all the time. I mean, we literally are expecting a new ambulance this year, 24, but we're probably going to be ordering a new ambulance because it takes about 18 months. So we have a rotation now because our ambulances are just, and of course now, so many they're going to Concord. They're not going to Laconia, they're transporting to Concord. So, yeah, we're scary. And then when you hear, how many years it's going to be even an older population, or could be an older population, that puts a lot of strain on your fire departments, your ambulance service.
Do you guys charge at all for ambulance service?
That's why we have, I can't tell you, I don't know what they charge. That's why we have what's called the Special Revenue Ambulance Fund or whatever. I can't remember exactly, it's been changed a couple of times. But that's strictly monies that are brought in from transporting. And that's what pays for our fire equipment. Pays for the ambulances, pays for the fire trucks. We're very fortunate that some of those revenues go in back to the town. So, yeah.
We don't charge anything, do we?
Well, that's, yes.
Well, the
Petticoat Rescue does.
Not
Oh,
us.
they do.
They do.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's next week's.
Yep.
So the study was from New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute.
Oh,
And the report is New Hampshire's growing population and changing demographics before and since the COVID pandemic. That's exactly what the website.
New Hampshire Fiscal Department?
Yep, New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute. By 2030. And they're apparently you can go and read the report on the Fiscal Policy Institute's website if you're interested.
Michelle, do you have that link right there? Could you just?
Yep, it's NH, F as in Frank, P as in Paul, I as in iceberg.org.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna say ice cream, but that doesn't.
That'll make me want ice
I
cream.
know, sorry.
That's right.
So sorry. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. It sounds like we're all on the same page, as glad as possible.
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for setting this up.
yeah.
Thank you. Did you find it helpful to have the two boards together? Or, you know?
Yeah,
I'd be
I've got a couple of
curious.
notes here about things I didn't know about
Ken
Belmont.
and I went to school here together.
Oh, that's funny. Well, just think about it, because we thought having one, I'll just say, we thought having one conversation would be nice, so you could all hear all the different
It's always
impacts.
fun to kind of swap
You can
more
learn.
stories.
Yeah,
So I think the timing was, early on in the budget process. Of course, you're not gonna come to us and say, we'd like to see the budget go up a lot, so.
right.
Yeah.
We know
We
what
know
each other's thinking, but I think
We just,
Gives
as
everybody a
selectmen,
heads up.
we just finished our budget pretty much, except for a couple items that we have no control over anyways.
So we finished last night.
Last night.
everything except for
Last
the
night.
insurance rates.
Yeah, so then we'll be going to, presenting that to the budget committee. And I can't remember what the date is.
But also talking about meetings and the public coming to meetings, the select board meetings in the town of Belmont are traditionally run at 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning, the first and third Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we intentionally, with the thought of the public comment in mind, set
Evening meetings.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 of the selectmen's budget committee meetings were held Monday and Tuesday night at 5 o'clock. And we had consistently just 2 people come. The last one last Tuesday, we had 4 people. But we had 7 meetings in total. And we didn't have any attendance moving them into the evening either.
And obviously for us, our reasoning for having morning meetings is the department heads are there, that we're not having to pay for the person to take minutes, we're not paying overtime for certain employees that have to come to these meetings. So we're actually saving money, but obviously Facebook loves us and everybody would brag about, oh, they're having morning, what are they hiding? What are we hiding? What are we hiding in this and that? No one even comes at night. It's just, it is what it is.
Are your meetings recorded and does anyone
Oh, of
watch
course,
them?
they
What can people watch them?
Yeah, oh, everybody can watch them, yeah.
Do they watch
Yep,
them?
they
Not
do.
they can, but
We
do they?
we have pretty good success. I mean, I run into people all the time that say they watch this.
We had to change how we broadcasted them. We're to go to a different, so we moved to the YouTube thing, so.
So they're recorded on YouTube as opposed to live? Well,
They're
probably
actually
both.
both, yeah.
And then they can always zoom in.
Good.
We have the Zoom option also. But no, nobody's interested until they get their bill and then, yeah, then it's.
Yeah, we don't have anybody watching the live stream, but like I said, we've had, it's not unusual to look at the select board meetings and see 100 hits, which I find astonishing.
I'm not
Good, in a
sure,
good way.
I'm not sure how many we get, to be honest.
So, anyway,
Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
thank you. Down the hill.
Yep.
Excuse me.
So, I'm going to exit.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar.
See ya.
See you soon.
Yep.
Oh, I can always.
And that's not it.
Okay.
Okay, so stuff is still, so the only. No, wait, let me finish. My question to you is, do you want to, we need some time to go through stuff? Like, there's a new, a probably.
So,
that's why I wanted to go with you, because there's a couple of things I saw down there that I know I made, like the big masks we had a couple of them, all like, if you think you're gonna use them, and if not, I'll make them go with that.
Yeah, no, we can use
Yeah, so I just didn't want to take anything away that might be going, but.
That's next on the agenda.
robotics.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, yeah, we're.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm trying not to be rude.
Tell me to get lost. Jeez, I'm sorry. I thought that this was, everybody was going. Sorry, I'm going down the planning board.
Yes, enjoy.
It's going to be great.
Okay, so robotics, this was tabled and put back on the agenda for October 22nd. It is in the information column, and I'll tell you why. Because anything we do with robotics would potentially impact the budget. So we need to think about, in terms of framing this came up because Appendix B met. It was recommending a new category for robotics with an increase in the stipend, and then we collectively had a lot of questions. So I want to frame that. So we have some discussions to do which really aren't about how awesome robotics is, because it clearly is awesome. And I'm only saying that we have to look at it through the lens of what do we want to do budget-wise, and what information do we need in order to make a decision to either accept the Appendix B recommendations or move robotics up or down or across when it comes to a stipend. In your packet, Amira, I included Amira's original email that talked about restructuring of robotics. She actually provided lots of different options. So a restructuring of robotics, which would include adding potentially positions to the budget. So that's an option. And yeah, so those are just things we need to think about. Also, I know Amira sent information today that was added to your packet, or to the drive, and it's under a folder, says robotics information.
I guess my question on that was, there's two different files, right? There's a 124 and 224. And I didn't know what the difference was. One more.
Is Amira here? Can we ask her?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
What
Do you want us to come up?
What's the difference in the reports?
The first report that I sent, do you want us to come up to the table?
You can come up, so we can,
You can go up, Shane.
just so we're clear what there's a survey report, and then, oh, and an in-region report.
So the first one that is 01, the survey report, there were a bunch of questions that were asked at the last school board meeting, like, are we matching, what are other people in the region doing? What do other schools do? How are they paying their coaches? How do they have their robotics program structured? So what I did is I took all those questions from the last school board and I created a survey. There are two coach groups on Facebook. One of them is worldwide, and one of them is New England. And I posted this survey into those groups, and I asked a bunch of questions. So the first report is the analysis of the results of all the questions that I asked, along with the questions that I asked. So like, do you have an assistant coach? How much do you bring in grants? How much do you bring in sponsorships? How much do you make? If you make over $10,000 in a season, can you go into some detail? So I listed all of that in the first report. The second report is looking at more in New Hampshire and Vermont and stacking us up against all the schools in our region. Looking at all the other organizations that have competed last season. I primarily focused on last season But I looked at the organizations and who is considered rural and low income. Where did we rank among other schools? And I also listed other information in the back of the report, our future goals. So what we see, 1 year, 5 years from now as far as robotics. I started working on like the budgetary stuff so that I could show how much our world trip last season cost. For example, I had over $14,000 in charges on my credit card and got reimbursed majority of that through GoFundMe and through school reimbursements. But there was still like a couple of $1,000s out of pocket for that. There was the Sugar Rush signature event that we did last December. There were out-of-pocket costs for that. So I was trying to pull that together, but unfortunately there are just not enough hours in the day for the amount of work that this position requires. And in the report, it's in the second report, it shows, it breaks down student hours, so there are graphs in there. So you can see student hours by month, you can see student hours by week over the last 3 seasons. For coaches, we didn't start taking time until last season. So you can see we put between me, Adrian DeHaze, and Alex Vanson, we put 2,164 hours for the one position to coach. And between the email and the reports, we have reached a point success-wise. We are very successful. Odin, can you hand me your notebook, please? We also have a robot here. If you have questions for the students, we have 2 teams that are being represented. And this is the engineering notebook that they did last season, that IPK, 603B, the team I don't know, they're called I don't know, we just call them IPK for short. This is their engineering notebook. And you can see the type of work that they put in. And that team, Belmont, overall, we brought home some very unprecedented awards. The first trophy for Belmont from Worlds, the first trophy this season, the Create Award at the Lobster Bowl signature event that we had mid-September. And I haven't even had time yet to make a post on social media. We brought home another award from last weekend's this past Saturday's MCC kickoff at Manchester. It is the Innovate Award. We don't have any plaques for that award. They gave us like a blank trophy. They're gonna give us, yeah. Otherwise I would share that, but we have another meet this upcoming Saturday in Scarborough, Maine, and then we have another meet the following Saturday in Thetford. So we have 3 back-to-backs. So unfortunately, I was not able to get all the budgetary information done for robotics because there's just not enough hours in the day. And I hope, especially the first report with the survey data, I hope that does answer some of the questions that were brought up. Jeff had, I think, a couple of questions. I forget what they were. I'd have to look them up. But now I'm here representing B5. I'm here to represent Belmont High School, and Matt Friend is here to represent IQ at the middle school. I am his assistant coach, so I am doing double duty with coaching. And then we also have Greta Frost, Miss Frost, who teaches robotics at Belmont High School, and this is her first year to teach. So we are here by request to answer any and all questions that you have.
I have some questions. So in looking at the in-region, it looks like the other schools that compete at the same level as Belmont are private schools.
Many of them are private schools. We go up against private organizations, we go up against hybrid organizations, independent academies. We also have other public schools. Belmont was only one of 2 public school systems to send a team to Worlds this past season. The other schools that earned the most awards were the private and independent.
Wow. And
So
then
what does RLIS mean?
Rural and low income, I don't remember.
So what does that mean?
Rural and low income school programs, those are basically organizations that they're receiving additional funding and help from.
So like the robotics grants, right? Do you know that?
I don't know enough about RLIS. I just know that we are because when we're registering teams in the Robot Events website, that's one of the questions that we get asked. So I'm like, I don't know what we are, so I just like looked it up, and I'm assuming we are, like, we're listed in the DOE. There's a list of RLIS schools, and our school district is one of them. A lot of Lakes Region school districts are. But like Bo, who we compete with, Spark Academy, Bo has none.
You determine RLIS by your freedom of use population.
Gotcha.
So the other case, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the competitive or the highly competitive teams, the competition team is part of I'll just speak to high school. They have a high school class that is dedicated to a competition team. Correct?
Depends. It depends on how that particular school has structured their class. Here at Belmont, and Ms. Frost can talk about how she has the class structured, but right now, robotics class is separate from competition.
Correct.
It does overlap a little bit with some of with like the VEX parts and stuff like that, but her class is not, she doesn't have kids yet. Or do you have kids? I can't remember. Do you have kids in your class that work on their competition bots, or it's strictly classroom? No.
But at least my experience, we're now going a few years ago, is that the teams that are going to Worlds, the highly competitive teams, their competitive team is basically a high school class versus a club and something that's done strictly after school and on students.
I think it's a mix. Because again, you have like Spark Academy. I keep referring back to Spark because it's Spark Academy of Advanced Technology. And their classes are geared towards VEX. Their classes they do robotics all day, and then they can do robotics in the afternoon.
Just to be clear, just for everybody's purposes, Spark is actually a public charter school, so it's free to go. So I just want to make sure when you say private school.
Oh,
in here,
sorry.
just so, no, I more was letting people know it's true. It's all based on, it's about, not just robotics, but it's not private in the way you think private, because it's free in the public charter school. But yes, everything there is precision.
Were there any other questions? I know it's a lot of information.
It's live, and
Yeah,
so thank you for putting it together. I know we just learned that it was in our packet, so we haven't had a whole lot of time to no time to digest, which is okay. I mean, you took a ton of time to put this together, so.
I know I was pretty clear last meeting. I'm very much an advocate of you guys and trying to get you appropriate compensation, because I completely understand the amount of hours that goes into these teams, especially once you start traveling.
There's also I've been thinking about this, the skills that these kids are learning. They're learning to CAD, they're learning to code, they're learning to build things, I actually read that one night They're learning project management, they're learning documentation, they're doing this all on their own, which is highly impressive, but I also think they should earn credit. But the STEM skills and even life skills that these currently are learning is, I think, one of the biggest benefits of this, especially since we're classified as a rural and low income school.
In the second report towards the back, I list some of the things that we teach. I list the hard skills and the soft skills. We teach a lot of critical thinking. We teach the engineering design process. We teach kids to advocate for themselves because it is a student-centered policy. Odin is going around and showing the CAD work that he's done, and he's also been teaching other kids how to do CAD. He's also stepped up. He is the most veteran out of all our students. This is his 6th season doing Week 5, his 7th overall doing robotics and shaker. He has the most knowledge out of everybody. He probably even knows a little bit more than I do. And he's teaching other kids CAD. He's working with the IQ. Today we were at IQ. He built a robot prototype for the IQ kids and showed it to them and talked about the drivetrain and the whole setup. One of our goals, and I feel this is important to say, we've seen over the years, we've seen some of the top schools that when their kids graduate, now the program starts tanking, and now that particular program is no longer at the top. And we see some schools that are struggling right now because they don't have the knowledge base to teach the younger kids. What we are trying to do is we are trying to streamline V5 and IQ and try to teach as many skills as we can in IQ, and also have our older kids mentor the younger kids. For example, his team, 603B, we have Odin, we have Ethan on the team, and we also have Randy's son Grant and another kid named Brody. And the reason we put Grant and Brody on IDK is because Grant and Brody's team got tournament champions at IQ. We did bring home an award last season in IQ. And because they were the most experienced, strongest team from IQ, we put those two kids on one of the strongest teams at the high school level. And we were not easy on them. You can ask Randy. We are not easy on the kids. They go on a demanding team, and they have to learn as much as they can, and they're doing amazing. Even our other kids that started a few weeks ago, we've got one kid who started less than a month ago, and he can CAD almost as good as Odin. So we're teaching a lot of skills in the program.
They also assign each other goals and projects. So, I know my son told me that Odin has challenged him to CAD an entire robot by himself toward the end of the calendar year. He came home and he's making a plan to get it done. And it's actually exciting because he doesn't think it's homework.
And I might add too, what's nice for me, again, my name's Matt. I'm the STEM teacher at the middle school, so I'm also doing IQ. Just being able to work with the high schools pretty closely and having Odin come today, I'm learning a lot more advanced skills, and that the goal for the club is to try to raise the caliber to have an excellent feeder program so that, the high school can continue that level of competition. But I also am able to I teach a course in robotics to 6th grade right now. And just being, working closely with the high school, I've learned so much that I can be able to kind of teach those skills to the whole school as they go through. And just seeing the progress, even at Belmont Middle School, and seeing what the kids are coming up with, getting ideas from the high school and seeing the caliber of robotics that not just the club members, but the whole school that the students that enrolled. It's been great for me to see some of the bots in the classroom with much more advanced tools in the company. So it's not just being able to work with Amira, because I wouldn't have been able to be a coach last year without the guidance of Amira and the high schoolers. So I know she obviously puts a lot of work into this, and she's helped me out tremendously. So it's not only helped me out in the club, but I think that relationship is helpful at school.
So, Mr. Friend, you have a lot of kids in robotics.
Well, it's the same experience last year. We start out with like about 35 pieces of paper that come in for students that want to join. Eventually, some students are doing sports. Some students actually, Amira, thankfully, she actually tried to help out in taking roughly 4 middle school students and brought them to the high school, some of our more advanced students. But she truly wanted to kind of lighten the load for me, because the space that we're in gets a little chaotic with about 30 middle schoolers.
So you're in your classroom.
Yep.
That's not very big.
It feels pretty claustrophobic when all the students are in there with the kids. But we're trying to figure out a good system. Again, this is my second year, so I think the goal for me this year is to try to see what other schools are doing to kind of organize middle school IQ program. But yeah, it's a tight space, but Mr. Pope and Mr. Saunders have been working with me to kind of figure out a good system. Because with the numbers we have, space is probably our biggest limitation. And trying to get some more support of people, helping out, because trying to make sure everybody gets the attention they need to work on their robots is a big struggle for them.
So my concern isn't, my concern is budget straight. Just so I want to figure out how, if we add a lot more to the budget, what are we going to take away? What are we going to cut, essentially? So just so you know where I'm coming from. And then is there a way to create a plan to create a infrastructure moving forward instead of potentially funding $100,000 or more right now? So that's my struggle right now, isn't the value of the program. I've seen it firsthand. It's phenomenal. I just worry about, it would be like adding, anytime you're going to add a whole infrastructure, how are we going to fund it? So I just think we have to think, if we're going to do that, what are we going to fund? Meaning, what are we going to take away if we decide to do that, to fund the whole thing? I think for sure we need to do something. I was on Appendix B, so I definitely was recommending that, but I don't know that I could vote to do a whole, a director with something that would cost a ton of money in one budget cycle. I'm just telling you where I'm going, because I'm struggling with the money. So.
I'm open, that was just one brainstorming idea.
Yeah.
I'm open to all kinds of ideas. If anyone has some other ideas to throw out, I can just tell you, I'm burned out.
Yeah.
I am burned out right now.
Yeah.
And we need the help. We need more coaches. We need an incentive for the coaches.
Coaches need to be certified, correct? It's not like
anyone, so if there's a parent volunteer who wants to become a coach, they can apply, they can be a coach, but they will have to get certified. The RECF, which is Robotics Education and Competition Foundation, they are the umbrella organization that oversees all of robotics competitions across the world, similar to the way NHIAA does sports in the state. So they are increasing their requirements. If you want to host an event, you have to be certified to host an event. If you want to coach, you now have to have one of their background checks. You have to do consent forms. They are protecting kids across the board more and more. So they're asking more and more from the coaches in that aspect. So a parent volunteer does not need to have a bachelor's in civil engineering like I do. They can have, they don't even have to have a degree. They just have to have the passion and, just be curious and excited with the kids and be willing to learn. But there is a lot of work and there is a lot to learn.
So I know a lot of this is student driven, and the students do their own schedule, and they'll stay late, have tournaments, and they'll do weekends and holidays. So even if there were parent volunteers, you still have to open the doors, correct?
Yes. It's either me or I open the doors, I let a parent volunteer or a school approved volunteer, I should say. So when I'm helping Mr. Friend on Wednesdays, because I coach D5 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and he does IQ Tuesday, Wednesday. So when I want to go help him, I have to have an approved volunteer covered for me. But I'm there, I let the kids in, I get them situated, I get them started on everything, I make sure the volunteer is there, and then I take off for the hour and a half, and then I come back and I finish coaching in D5. So, yes, I do have to be there to let them in.
I'll throw in my 2 cents. It's a double-edged sword for me personally, because I want more people like you who put in the effort and promote programs. But then I worry about sustainability. Can we keep it going? What the cost is going to be? And what about all of the other programs we have that haven't traditionally funded for a year? So like, I assume, like other co-curricular sports, for example, you pay a coach or something, but the expectation I thought was for that season.
Correct.
So what about when they're coaching the summer off seasons?
Right.
Do we pay them year-round? Like, maybe we should be considering that. And so my concern is how we don't let this blow up without a real plan for the district.
Which is what I want to look at in terms of infrastructure of some kind to support, like we have in the past. I don't know what that means, because I understand about cost.
That's why I would be an advocate of the VEX platforms working their way into curriculum, working their way into full-blown, full-blown classes, and those classes then help support the competitive team, because then at that point it's integrated throughout the entire school. It's integrated into the curriculum. I think that's a much easier way to justify funding with that. It's not just an extracurricular at that point.
Currently, from my understanding, there's nothing in the STEM budget for next year. And traditionally, when DeHaze taught the class, anything he needed for robotics came out of the STEM account. And I think he said, I would have to look at my text message with him.
But here, can we go over that? Like, is there nothing else?
It would be in EHS. Do we have a STEM director? We have STEM.
working. We have a teacher.
Do you have any insight?
Very limited. So we've been looking into how to fund the robotics class because it has been a big question mark. And
Can you come up to the table?
Sure, thank you. The big question has been where is the funding coming from for the class? Because it was unclear, there were no particular lines in the STEM budget. And we weren't sure if it should be coming from the science department budget. We weren't clear on, we didn't get the proper direction as to what we should be requesting for our next budget cycle. And so I remain without a budget.
Well, there is an account that is specific for STEM, both at the middle school and the high school. The high school STEM budget has $2,500 this year, and there's $2,500 in requests for next year, and that's for supplies.
Do we know what that historically is spent on?
I would have to go back and look. I mean, it's just whatever the STEM classes, whoever's teaching STEM.
Mr. McDonald.
Mr. McDonald teaches
So-
STEM classes, other than robotics, and he's been using that budget.
Okay. So that's all I have is STEM. We've never had anything specific for robotics. It's always been STEM.
What page is that?
This one is on page 4, the high school line,
Middle school's on.
and middle school is on the previous page on 3. Supplies STEM at the middle school, it's a $3,500 budget this year and a $3,500 request for next year.
But only 2,500 for the high school?
That's what was requested.
So this is my concern is, I think we have to have that discussion about who requested it. Why is that request that amount? Because what I don't want, no offense, is I don't want there to be a situation where we're having a deliberative session and there's a request to add more money. Because I got multiple requests for people to do that afterwards, for future years, from 3 individuals, and I think squashed. Please don't do that. I want the budget process to work. So if that's not enough for the program, we need to be talking about that next month.
And I know this is the second year of the 2-year grant. I have no idea if there's going to be future funding.
Right.
For robotics.
Well, my concern is that because we're all low-income school that we're designated by for the DOE, it's the DOE grant, right? So if we, for some reason, don't get enough kids to classify as this, does that impact the grant? If that's what this is.
No, the robotics grant doesn't have anything to do with that. You can still get a robotics grant. The funding comes under rural and low income. It's not a specific rural and low income Title V grant.
So if we were no longer designated as a low-income school, we would still get the match?
We would still be able to qualify. I can't guarantee that we would still get the robotics grant, but I know that they talked yesterday on the DOE monthly report that there's still funding, that they haven't given all of their money out because not everybody's applied for robotics grants.
So those robotics grants are considered competitive grants, so they come up every year based on the state allocation of grant funding for those specific robotics grants. Our Title V, which is the RLIS grant, we get an allocation for that every year. It might vary from one year to another, but that is what's based on our free and reduced numbers, as well as our other titles as well. But the robotics grants, they're not based on that free and reduced number. They're just their competitive grant, they pool the money, and the school districts can apply for it. As to whether the state funds it or not, is what we're subject to for applying for those grants. But every year it's been available, we've applied for it, and have received the maximum amount of application.
The maximum amount.
That's the request.
But there's several different components that fall under rural and low income.
But I agree with you, Sean. So this is the time if the board is going to fund or increase even supply line for STEM, this is the time to have that conversation, just so the board's aware of the process. The requests come from the teachers to the principal to me, and we look at that specifically, and that's why you see that those lines are level funded based on requests that come from starting the classrooms, the principal, and so forth.
Well,
And at the high school level, and then Mr. Finch didn't cut that request line anyway, nor did I, so.
Well, I think the question becomes, well, for me, if a principal's only going to a STEM teacher because Mr. McDonald teaches STEM, STEM should also include robotics.
It's a department decision, so it's part of the department. So the faculty council, head of that department, is the one that submits the budget for the department. So it starts with all of the teachers that are within the department, goes to the department head that submits the budget for that specific department in the high school.
So we wouldn't be able to add it would be inappropriate to add a robotics line.
You have them, and you already have them.
No robotics class. I'm just curious, the class, because are you saying that you don't know where?
This is because there is no true STEM department because these other STEM classes are taught by Mr. McDonald and he falls within the math department. And I fall within the science department. And so we don't have a STEM department per se. We don't meet together. And so it's a little awkward.
So that's where there's a communication breakdown.
Right.
STEM is considered in two departments, even though it has its own lines. Those requests are coming through two different departments.
And did you know where to request funding for your class? I'm not talking about the class.
I could certainly get guidance as to how to do that, yes. But I have better understanding now than I did when we were supposed to be doing our budgeting.
Fair.
So this is your first year teaching robotics, right?
Yes,
So you didn't know what you
correct. That's the other challenge.
Well, I also want to be, because I also heard, I think you said, the money that was in robotics or STEM or whatever you were saying, Amira, was being used for the robotics program in the past. Mr. DeHaze used it.
Oh.
I'm not
Yeah.
judging that. What I'm saying is that money should be for the class. So I want to make sure you have what you need to teach the class. That's I'm parsing it out as two separate things. I want to make sure robotics has what it needs to operate also. But then I also want to make sure that the students in the robotics class have what they need to do what they need to do, just like any class. So it would be the same if social studies was here. I want them to have textbooks, and I brought that up last year.
So Mr. DeHaze said his robotics class was funded through the STEM budget where they split 8,000.
His class.
His class. And then the competition was separate with the grants and the sponsorships and fundraising that we would do.
Thank you for clarifying so much.
So a question I have, and I apologize if this is not appropriate, but since there's already a STEM line item in the budget, should there be a separate robotics class line item in the budget?
We typically don't budget by particular classes.
Okay.
But that certainly could be up to the board if they wanted to add a new line item to the budget.
I think the larger question to me, well, just is that STEM should include all things STEM related, and there should be science. I mean, if STEM's not a department, that's a whole separate. I don't know where the requests are coming from, so I don't want to parse it out to, okay, this STEM class gets this much, and robotics gets this, and astronomy gets this, but on the other hand,
I want to make sure STEM, we know what is included for STEM.
My challenge is that when Mr. McDonald requested that money for the budget last year, I wasn't even going to be teaching robotics.
Right.
So there was no planning.
Yeah, that makes sense, but the budget now, I'm sorry, the budget.
I just want to make sure there's no disconnects
Right, that's.
amongst the department. That's not really our.
That would definitely be a department issue, because let's just say you decided to put $5,000 in for STEM to cover STEM and robotics. I don't maintain saying, okay, so much of this is for STEM and so much is for robotics, if it's one account. That's up to the departments.
Right, but since STEM isn't a department.
Correct, but one would think that the individuals who would put in the request, I mean, they've done it with music and band before.
Right.
You know, they would communicate with each other, and, you know, not one person would use up all the money if they requested.
Other questions?
If the funding for the robotics class still falls under the STEM line item, then should that be increased back to the same amount of, like when DeHaze was teaching it, back to 8,000 from 2,500?
It wasn't 8,000 in there. He had a lot of that in the science because he was teaching sciences. So he would budget under science supplies and use some of that. It was never strictly budgeted under STEM. It was because of that that we started breaking out for STEM.
I mean, I think we could, I was going to say, I think we could ask Michael to talk to Mr. Finch about how STEM is budgeted for, but I don't know what else. Since it's not a department, I'm trying to figure out, like, where does that even go to? In order to figure out.
Should it have its own line?
Well, STEM does have some.
No, should robotics have its own line?
So what I was saying is I don't know that we want to get into the robotics class, the astronomy class, right? I mean, I get what you're saying, but.
I'd rather fix the process that starts.
Right, so like how I agree about the communication. So what is included for STEM? Because one could argue science, technology, engineering, and math would include all of science, right? But, and probably some technologies would.
Either that or the subcategories under or within STEM.
So Michael's writing something down, so I think he's going to follow up on something.
Robotics. Actually, the teachers are receiving those.
Thank you.
Funds they're requesting.
Thank you.
And all those requests can try to see
That transition, right. Is that right? For the class, the STEM.
The club is working with the class. Greta and I work together quite a bit. So we have a bunch of old discontinued parts that are no longer competition legal that we've donated to the class. We're switching over our screws. Well, one of our issues is because it's not climate controlled and because the last 2 summers there's been such high humidity, we have had a lot of our supplies rust. So we are kind of shifting, like our screws, we're switching to aluminum screws. Our brains have shorted out from the humidity, so our old brains, not these, but the electronic. yeah, this one has shorted out too. The electronic brains that go on the robots, we've had several of the brains and some of our batteries where the ports and the cells within them have shorted out. We can't use a battery, we can't use a brain that is missing half its ports for a competition robot, but that brain can satisfy the classroom. So there are things that as as we are replacing some of our older equipment, we are donating what we can to class to help them out as much as possible.
My question is just, I guess, for the board, what do we need to do to move forward? Because, to Sean's point, like, you know, we want to have this discussion and we need information. I think we kind of need to figure this out.
Do we have some analysis on what cost breakdown would be for some of these scenarios that's being presented?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Try to get realistic numbers for some of it. Moving forward for the class, when you said that you have a better understanding now of the budgetary process, I mean, we're obviously in the beginning. So if there's changes that need to be made, if you get those together and get those working up through Mr. Finch,
okay,
for the pilot class, I think that would be great.
Okay.
If we need to do some type of and then.
And Michael's going to talk to Mr. Finch on the other end of student communication. So, what are we asking for budgetary information? Everything, I'm just asking because I don't know who's going to do it, because that's going to be the next piece. What are we asking for in terms of drafting what something will cost, or what scenarios are we asking to be drafted?
So the board has the initial proposal that Appendix B look at, and that was sort of mirrored together. That has two options to it. And then she sent over those two reports today that are in the folder. So Amiri's mentioned that you're putting some budget numbers to those options based on regional teams and how they're structured.
Not towards the proposal or the restructuring with the director position, but just like what we spent the money on last season, like how much went to supplies, how much went to registration fees, how much the world trip costs. Those type of budgetary items are things that I can put together for the next meeting if you need me to come back for the next meeting.
See that as what does the board need to make decisions. So if your initial proposal, your options that went to Appendix B, your director position, your additional coaching positions, what is the cost associated with each one of those positions based on the research that you've done for other districts that have a similar type of position? That way there the board can look and see if you're going to potentially add a director position. Regionally, this is what the cost associated with that coaching position, this is the cost associated with it. Supplies, this is what we spend on supplies. Fees, this is what we spend on fees, so that there's some sort of budgetary breakdown of the proposal for the board to consider how they might want to use the budget process to determine what those costs would be
And the cost that I gave you last year, that whole breakdown, included from the grant, from student activity and the general account. So that wasn't all from one source.
But, so I'm looking at, okay, just so I'm clear what we're potentially asking. Proposal A was a robotics director that would then encompass all the two advisors, two head coaches, and then assistant coach at the middle and high school. Are we asking for a breakdown of what that would cost?
I think that makes it very clear to the board to consider, here's the cost associated with what's being proposed for a structure for a robotics program in the future.
Because the two elementary schools don't even have
right
charters. So so there's no coach advisors there.
So I think just put some dollar figures to the proposal for the board to consider.
So did that proposal that you just described go to the Appendix B committee?
It did, but we said that is above Appendix B. Appendix B is only looking at what movement within Appendix B.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we were now basically overruling the Appendix B and micromanaging their work. This is separate of the Appendix B.
The Appendix B did not believe this proposal was something they could bring forward to the board. They did make a recommendation to create the one new category for the high school coach and to move the middle school. That was the recommendation that they felt would be their charge.
Because these, to us, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what Amira was proposing aside from the coaches themselves is that can go on Appendix B somewhere in the process. But a director and proposal B had like scrimmage coordinator, event coordinator, like that, those are, I mean, we can still fund them potentially through a stipend, but that is outside, we saw as outside of the purview of Appendix B. The way Appendix B is structured.
I would like to see a third option. Mark had proposed at the last one that we do the stipend out season-wise, and do it as a potential four-season stipend.
So we do that for all of the co-curriculars that are on?
I think it depends, like, look at the hours in it.
Yeah, you gotta start comparing the hours. I mean, doing open gym once a week in the off season does not compare to the time that's involved in a robotics program.
Well, I will say I am not in favor of funding the summer. The reason I'm not in favor of funding the summer, unless we're gonna fund everything else that happens, is the amount of time that a number of coaches give up in the summer is significant as well. So that's a slippery slope for me in the summer. I'm just funding on that. I think we're going to do that, but you want to look at the 3 or 4 seasons of higher stipend.
Yes, and then also I know that when they fundraise, it goes into their student activities account, and those are limited to how they can be spent. And the general fund is limited to how it can be spent, and the robotics grant is limited to how it can be spent. So I would like us to come up with some creative way to either if it's some type of new account they could use, but so that travel for coaches is factored in. Because you personally drove the robots last year to Texas because they can't fly, correct?
They could fly, but there's a big risk and a lot of horror stories to do that. So because we're originally from Texas and about 90% of my family still lives in Texas, I drive.
And then you were there for how long for E5?
Well, there were 2 different championships. We had our middle school team qualify for the middle school division and the high school for the high school division. So we were there twice as long as normal. So I think we were in Dallas about 9 days. It was a very long trip.
Are there currently, just from my knowledge, are there currently any co-curriculars or sports or anything on Appendix B where a coach can be reimbursed for travel?
Is that because they don't travel? So if
They don't travel because they don't have the budget to travel. Increase their budgets, provide additional opportunities like the K-12.
So I know, like, someone at the high school was telling me that, like, they want to do some basketball trip, and
and they're talking about how they're gonna fundraise for that. So like, where does that money go? Because I know at least from like class trips with like overseas, like the cost of the teacher that goes with it is factored into the cost. So like that money shouldn't be going into some sort of like student activities account where it can't be used for that.
Okay, there's nothing that says, the student activity account, there's nothing that says when they factor that price in. We do pay the total cost of that. There is board policy that says chaperones should be paying their own way. But historically, they will make these trips so that the chaperones either get a very reduced rate or there's no charge. You get a free adult for every so many students. But we do typically pay for travel. What we don't pay is, you're going on the trip, you're paying your own airfare, please reimburse me. We don't reimburse for that. So that's based on policy.
Would a teacher, like, when they go to, France, I'm just asking, France or what's the club? Like Spanish club or French club, do they get travel expenses?
We don't pay the travel expenses, but again, a lot of times they will work out the arrangement with the travel agency so that the cost that the students pay after so many students, you get one chaperone. And if it's a reduced rate, they're responsible for paying into the student activity account, just like the students pay, and then we pay the full bill.
I wanted to get some clarity.
Yeah. And there was, the girls softball team did all that fundraising to go to Florida. They did all of the fundraising. I don't know, I can't tell you if the coaches raised or put the money in, because all I know is I'm getting the money, put it into the account, and then I get, this is what you need to pay out to cover the van, the airfare, all of those. So I didn't get the breakdown by person. But I'm not paying an individual, reimbursing their travel.
So you want to know
Well, so I'm assuming what happens is you didn't know that your teams were going to make a bunch of worlds in Europe.
So the middle school team, we did know at states, but the high school team were on a wait list for Worlds, and there were a certain amount of allocated spots, and they got the luck of the draw and were invited into Worlds. And that changed all the travel arrangements and plans and stuff, so yeah.
So you ended up paying for everything yourself.
Okay.
You ended up paying for everything yourself and got reimbursed for a portion, whereas if I'm hearing this correctly, she used a travel agency, then it could have worked out differently, because you wouldn't pay them directly.
No, I could have paid them as well directly. We could have made arrangements. I could have used the district credit card to pay the airfare or whatever for the students. But Amira and I talked, that was the way she wanted to handle it. But we have had on occasion, like the French club, the French class, when they're going overseas, I get the list of all the students, I do all the airfare on the district credit card.
I really
Because
think
they raised the money for it, coming out of the
But they can't go without a school representative, right?
Correct. Right, so all of that has been raised and it's in the account. It's just, I just do all the airline tickets.
So, but what you're saying is if you have a chaperone or the coach that's going.
A lot of times they are covered.
Because you have so many students. Right. But like when the softball team traveled to X, Y, and Z, you can't take that money out of the student activities account to cover the coach.
That has to go with it.
Right.
Correct, either the coach is paying in for their share, or it's the other. I mean, I don't sit there and get the full accounting and say, what exactly, who all paid what. It's like, this is the total amount we need to cover for everyone who's flying down. So.
I'm wondering why you don't get a full accounting of that situation.
So a
I
lot of
don't know
times
how-
they'll pay over time, and I'd have to keep a spreadsheet to have all of that, which I could do, but.
So, but Debbie could do up the numbers for that third scenario, because you kind of already have it, if you, for a stipend for each season. Which is what we requested. Okay, so I'm guessing this is not realistic for the meeting today. Great, but this is budget. But the first, what is our 12? So the 12?
And then I know we're talking a lot about the high school, but I'm assuming we need to look at the middle school as well. And the hours that are put into that, I think that should be.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had recommended it be increased just based on the information here. Appendix B recommended it be increased. But I'm sure that we could do one for each.
And Mr. Friend, when does your season start and when does it end?
We started this year, mid-September, and a lot is just to kind of establish who's interested, you get the numbers, and then figure out who's committed. You know, when you get 30, 35 students signing up, you know the numbers are going to fall down. But we go, right now, it's 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but we'll end. I think states last year was February, mid-February.
Yeah, it's always the week before winter break.
Right. And then, so we'll officially, we'll postpone it until March so that students can kind of help sort their kids. But then the new game will come out in April. And so then I'll have the investigators come back in April and kind of meet once a week to start thinking about how they want to plan for the next game. It would be nice to eventually kind of open up in the summer. It would be my first year. I don't know if we're there yet, but we definitely have committed students. But I know that's what we probably have to do. Be competitive with a lot of the schools that we compete with that have a lot of resources and a lot of students that really invest in robotics. But, so to answer your question, it's roughly, like, this year will go September till about March. So maybe some weekends here, and sometime in April.
Are you able to get, I guess I should ask, are you able to get us some rough numbers on what you think? See, we don't know, I'll just say why I don't think anyone can calculate it. We don't know some of these, what you think, how many hours a director would take, or some of the coordinators. So there's no way we could have Debbie run numbers because maybe Debbie could help after you have hours. Is that possible, Debbie?
the original thought process, when I updated the job description for the VHS coach, I broke it down into sections. Here's what you have to do if you make it to nationals.
Right.
Here's what you do for worlds. Here's what you do for a signature event. Here are all your other stuff that you have to do. So I broke it down into sections, and the reason I did that is that some of that stuff could be taken over by a director. So then that frees up the head coach to just focus on coaching, and they don't need to worry about writing the field trip report and getting all the paperwork and getting a welcome package together and coordinating with all the schools.
Right.
The director could oversee all of that. But I'm also open to different ideas. If we don't do a director, is there a fourth option? Do we do 2 coaches for high school, 2 coaches for middle school, and call it a day? And then between those 2 people, split that 2,164 hours that 3 people did for one position last season. And it's already shaping up to be about the same amount of hours again this season. But that's to keep it up here, because our goal is that when eventually I step down as coach, however many years in the future, I want to make sure that I want to make sure Belmont and Shaker does not go down the same road that some of these other districts have, to where they were at the top and now they're no longer at the top. We want to see it continue to be at the top. So we currently have it structured to where we could potentially send teams to Worlds every year for the next few years. We don't want to see the programs fail.
Right. Right.
So I'm open to any suggestion that anyone has. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Budget development. Jay and
Edgar, sure.
take it. Michael has handouts. Thank you so much.
So, some new information for you this evening. I'm going to come back to this first sheet that says budget adjustments on it. But some of the following sheets, what was requested in the last meeting, you have a summer school breakdown for you to review. I wouldn't say we're potentially going to get a discussion about that this evening. It's the first time you're seeing it. And then there's also, these are all the electronic info subscriptions that we have in the district, and for what we have, the number of licenses, costs associated with it.
Can you refresh my memory on the summer school piece? The reason we asked for this is because we're taking on more of those costs. Like
It's no longer escrow. So you'll see that from 21-22 through 24-25, there was 2 lines that covered the costs for teachers and transportation for the credit recovery in summer school. And a portion of extended school year, because teachers will be booked for that as well.
So what is new this evening for budget adjustments since we presented a budget to you on the 10/3 meeting? We did receive our request for track changes, which we're doing by October 15th. You see that is an increase to the proposed budget that I presented to you. It was $8,194. We did get one retirement request for separation. You can see that that's at $66,260. We replaced that vacancy in the proposed budget with a bachelor step one. You can see what that savings is. It's $49,229.
One question. It's for separation, have we passed the time?
Yes, October 15th.
For SREA, yes.
For SREA.
Administrators have to November 1st.
Did you say that sunsets mean there's a move now, but it doesn't, it's not a.
They have to
The
be
young
hired by a
people are
certain
not
date.
under the same contract.
Correct. Well, they're under the same contract, but the language specifically says they had to have been hired as a teacher by a certain
That's
date
what I meant.
to qualify for separation.
And so we did add in, and we haven't made these adjustments to the proposed budget yet, but these are somewhat of a given other than the health insurance. We'll get to that. So the Appendix B recommendation was approved at the last meeting for those two clubs was $2,351. So unfortunately, our health insurance provider reached out to Debbie, originally gave us the estimate of 10%. They had a meeting, this isn't the rate that's set at this point, but she said I would be more, I would recommend a 15% health insurance increase compared to the 10% that she originally had proposed to be safe. It could be higher than that, so the 15,
And it could be lower.
It could be lower. The 15% increase is $151,000.
It's not going to be 10% increase. It's a constant up there.
So that's 151 on top of the 10% that's already in the proposed budget.
Okay, so that was my question. So this represents a 5% increase, not a 15% increase. Okay.
All these are increases and decreases from what we already have.
Yes. And we have not touched the budget that you have in your booklet at this point. But what we're saying here, budget adjustments, these are pretty much given other than the health insurance. This was based on our last meeting. So the propane at the middle school and propane at the high school, we would reduce those both lines by those amounts, 7,000 at the middle school and 9,000 at the high school, because that's when we increased the pellet lines. So whatever we increase the pellet line, we decrease the propane line by that same amount. And then the request for the NEASC visitation, we discovered that the stipend, the costs that are associated this year in this year's budget, we level funded that into the proposed budget, but also added the new requests. So we saw that in there as double budgeting, so that would be a reduction. But all in all, out of all of those numbers, you're looking at a potential increase of $156,315 to the proposed budget that you have in your booklets. So what that looks like is you currently are at 1.69% for an increase. With this increase, which is 2.26 for the subtotal, and what's in your binder now for proposed budget is 0.93%. This 156,000 on top of it, which is 1.46%. Sorry.
Go over this last line items. I understood the current subtotal increase and the increase in adjustment. The loss in the total increase.
Yeah. So you have two sections of your budget. The subtotal increase is what taxes are based on.
Okay.
And then your total budget is the total budget after the adjustments and transfers.
Now, you have a 15% at 151, and you had also talked about an increase in the contribution to our support staff.
Yes.
Would that be effective too?
That's in this number.
That's on that number?
Yep.
So if you were to decide not to do the increase of contribution this year,
that number would go down.
You could shut that much off right off the bat?
No, it wouldn't be that total amount. So this increase of $151,436 is on top of what's in your proposed budget. Your proposed budget includes that increase in contribution to support staff health insurance. If the board was to decide not to increase that contribution, it would only impact the support staff contribution increase that's in the proposed budget. This 15% is for all employees.
Yeah, but the 63, the 63,000 that is in that front paper, you could save up that much if you decide not to do it.
You wouldn't save the 63,000 because you're still going to have the increase in the health insurance. So the district is still going to have to say some of that increase.
Well, he's saying under health insurance, there's,
correct.
There's still 63,000 that is us contributing.
Yeah, so that's it. So that is the increase in the contributions at $63,000. So to your point, it would hit both of those lines. If the board decided not to increase the contribution, you would see a decrease in that $151,000, and you would also see a decrease in the $63,000 that was originally proposed.
I have a question, just because I'm looking at this and I'm sure it adds up. I might have to take a look at calculator. But is 156,000 really like a little over 0.5% of our total budget? I feel like it should be like 0.001. Because it seems so minuscule compared to our overall. Right.
It's what?
Approximately that.
Sorry, just to clarify my mind, we're talking. We haven't gone over that.
Yes, that's in here. So he asked if the contractual increases were in the budget that was proposed.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, the milk
Yeah, I
machine
know.
is super loud, just so
It
you know.
is. That's why I'm all here to make it know.
Well, it's hard, because Jay, you're very soft-spoken.
Really? I never knew that.
Because I can hear Edgar fine.
Okay.
Always have, but for both times, I'm like,
Speak up.
So, Brandon, to your point, if you think about it, the total subtotal increase of 1.69% is $460,000.
And I liked it when we were under 2%.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm hoping that's how the budget discussion goes this evening. What is the board looking for our next meeting? Knowing that you're looking at $156,000.
So the frustration I have is, what determines the dollar impact on homeowners? Is it based on the tax rate, revenue? Like, where do we get that information? Because I hate to say it, but that helps drive me to what that percentage should be. Like, I don't know what the percentage should be. It could be 0%, 0.5, 2%. But I want to know on a $300,000 loan what we're looking at for an increase in those school taxes.
So I do not get the adequate education and statewide property tax until mid-November. And I have to wait until DRA sets the tax rates before I can go through and do those calculations based on whatever budget we're looking at the time.
So fair enough, given that information, I want a 0% increase because I don't know what.
So do you want a 0% increase in the tax rate or a 0% increase in the budget?
On the budget, please. For the budget, given that I don't know how it's going to impact. Because I realize a 0% increase could still add, $500 to my tax each year.
Yeah.
But until I know, I want it as low as possible.
Yeah. And I have no idea what's holding up the county. So, you heard me say that's the one piece that they're waiting for, because I've already signed off on our revenues for this year, and that, a week and a half ago.
And this isn't a you problem, it's a
No, I
systemic
know.
problem, but
Right.
it's frustrating because we do all this work, but we really don't know how it's going to impact.
So Sean, what do you think from the perspective of I think we did a pretty good scrub on the last meeting, not including the staffing discussion. I'm not harping on staffing, but my point is, and I think the board's done a good job in these years, decide what the need is. And the tax information comes in, we'll figure out if people can afford it and begin to do. So this is what we asked Michael to do toward the end there. But I think right now, to your point, I think I would question where we're spending money, make good decisions, and the number's going to be what it is, and then be prepared if we need to ask Michael again, okay, we can't sell this with taxpayers, so what happens? Does that make sense? I know it's not a perfect answer, but
I was anticipating coming to this meeting and presenting this information, which is good information because we work hard for you something that's under 2%, our total is even under 1%. So I'm not happy to bring this to you. I was coming to this meeting with probably the assumption that this board was going to ask me to bring it back down to where potentially was presented. So if that is the request of the board, then I would like some time to be able to do that, potentially bring you some suggestions at our next meeting. But I would like to know from the board, just a general understanding, what are you looking for? And you've had time now to look at the budget. What are some areas that you would like for me to focus on if I'm going to bring you some suggestions? Because honestly, nitpicking the administrative budgets isn't going to get you to where you want to be. Because they did a great job bringing those numbers in lower. If they were higher, it was by a minuscule amount.
Go ahead, Baker.
All right, and you had changed one of the open positions from EMA to VA,
Yes.
right? What about the other open positions? Are you not able to modify those to lower them?
So our support staff vacancies are already at the lowest level.
And the open teaching positions
Are at the
are
lowest
also
level.
at Bachelor Step 1. We dropped all of those to Bachelor Step 1.
So all our vacancies are at the lowest level of the salary scale.
So the vacancy report that you gave us, all of them are at the lowest level in the budget you gave us.
Correct. Other than the specialist at the school site is based on what the going rate would be for a school psychologist.
Is that what you were asking?
Yes, yeah.
Our
And-
IAB guy, found a 3.2% increase on like administrators, basically administrators, even for the support staff and specialists. So it's child, 3.2% increase with administrators. Because they've got a raise every year. You go back and look at what you just cut them out. Because I mean, support staff, they should be, you know, we're looking to cut stuff. That's what I'm looking at.
Others?
I'd like a discussion around staffing. This won't be popular at one of the Canterbury's, but I really want to talk about how many students for fifth grade for next year and have a discussion around what the staffing looks like. There's only 9 kids in 4th grade this year. So what does that mean for 5th grade? And I'm not suggesting that we cut 5th grade. I'm saying we should know now, because I don't want to carry another position. Is there another position up there?
Yeah.
So
That's in the
doing,
proposed operating budget.
when we discussed this last year, we knew that we would have to kind of take this to budget because it's the classes behind that have a large amount of children.
So here's the thing, I'm not suggesting, this is what I want to talk about. I'm not suggesting, I'm just looking at Canterbury as a whole. So, I'm not suggesting we cut, but I'm just wondering, even if we didn't fill that position and removed it from the budget this year potentially, because of what the families are choosing to do. That doesn't mean that Canterbury wouldn't have one the year before. Like the decision on when we split classes and when we don't split classes I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll throw out there that I don't think it's too early to know what those 9 students do at every school.
We enrolled earlier this year, so we already know that 8 out of those 9 families are going to middle school.
Why would we have, so this is just my opinion. Why would we have a position in a budget that we know we're not going to fill as a placeholder, where it feels like the right budget decision is don't have a position. If we need it the following year, fight like heck at the hearings to add a position to the budget. Take it out when you don't need it. When you need a position, add it to the budget. I'm not sure why we're so afraid to add positions. We should add positions if we do. But I also don't think we should have positions in the budget that get no attention. No. That's just one person.
But I agree, the classes after the current 4th grade are higher.
I think the 3rd grade class has 19 or 20, and then I know my daughter's in the 7th grade class, I think they're to 23 or 24 this time. And they're all of them are 20 or above, they're
Yeah, no, I know. I just hate that we have to carry it on the books.
I agree. I think that if this is going to come up, it's again something that's going to need a lot of transparency because this is something that people take very seriously.
I helped my kids in 5th grade, both of them went to 5th grade, so I think if we truly consider it, I would want to have a conversation. So, and I agree with Sean, like, we need to put it, like, if we choose to cut it, because we won't have it next year potentially, if we put it back in. So, that makes sense, should cut position. It's so easy to put it back. That's my concern, is that once you cut it, it's very difficult to get back.
Ultimately, who makes that call? We make that call as far as the operation.
Correct. Well, and ultimately, we added a position to Canterbury a couple of years ago, right? Because we split the bus, but I just think we have to look this hard.
So, I mean, just to piggyback off of yours, I mean, this is, I lay awake in the middle of the night because I don't sleep, and you know, budgets and this stuff is the type of things that I think about. Obviously, you touched on a potentially unpopular topic. Well, here's another potentially unpopular one, but could we be looking at consolidating some of our administrative team where you have similar, you have budgets, you have curriculum at the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school. Do we need three principals? Could we have one principal and then have assistant principals underneath them, handling discipline and that type of thing? I'm not sitting here advocating for it, but should we at least engage in the conversation? What does that look like? Would it work? It may not work. But I don't know. That was one of the things that I was thinking about middle of the night.
Not completely related to what you said, looking back. So whatever you decide, and I'll say the same thing as last year, the people you retain, the raises should at least match inflation. In my opinion, where you're going to start getting worse not direct, I mean, with what you say, I agree, but
what's the COLA?
COLA came out the other day, it's 2.5.
And so,
Then recalculate 2.5, see what that is.
I also wonder about the substitute increase. These are my own thinking, which are small dollars generally speaking, but like, who's paying $150 a day and
split the middle and do 125. Just bringing it up, because who does 150?
So these are all things that I've been thinking about too, quite honestly, right? And I came into this meeting, as I said earlier, thinking that the board was going to ask me to come back with some suggestions.
Yeah.
What you're discussing is all what I consider sort of low-hanging fruit for discussion. And I can put a list together for you and next week with some of the items that you're thinking about, and see where that brings you. Just sort of looking at, I'm looking for the board, I've heard tonight a couple times, level funded. In the conversation with the board of selectmen, we want to level it. Very 0%. So you're getting to that number, you're talking staffing. There's nothing else that's going to get you there other than staffing.
Sean asked for 0%. This is white.
And staffing is going to get you there.
So you mentioned low-hanging fruit, which I don't know, I consider low-hanging fruit, but I get what you're saying. Are there higher hanging fruit ideas in the back of your head and thinking about it? Things we haven't thought about or creative ways well, I use staffing as an example because I'm a big percentage of the budget, but are there any other ideas you've thought about or could?
I'm really just starting with what is a conversation that this board can have in the immediate future. Bigger changes take some time. I'd love to focusing quite honestly on what is in the proposed budget that potentially got below that number.
Sean, we hit it on it in the last meeting. One of the things that you were talking about is what does Shaker-Reef, or what can Shaker-Reef bring to the plate for the vocational education? Can we offer a program that is going to attract, students, into to get on a bus and come to Belmont High School? One of the big ones, they're sitting here tonight. If we have such a strong robotics program, is it going to cost money to fully fund that in order to offer it to surrounding districts? Absolutely. And then once you start tuitioning students in, that can offset a lot of it, but that's,
So I've been thinking about that too, Sean, your point about bringing in the early childhood certification program and students can receive the Hewitt. I wouldn't advocate for that particularly because I don't want to be in competition with our regional career technical education center. And it would cost more money for the district to go get their own program because you're hiring additional staff. And to try and work out scheduling for a tuition purpose for a student to come over to our school during their regular academic schedule during the day takes away from those school districts that they would be potentially leaving to come here. More importantly, the cost associated with initiating a program means you don't want to see an increase in your budget because you need to cut something else out and do it. Particularly if your offsetting revenue is a question every year because you wouldn't know how many students would be coming into that program. And if we look at that program specifically, it could be a handful of students that are in that program, and even the Hewitt has a hard time finding a certified instructor to teach those programs. So now we're in the business of trying to find a teacher to teach that position. You're looking at an increase in the budget when we already have teaching positions for our core content areas that we struggle finding someone to do. So these are great ideas, and I'm just thinking about, how could that happen? And more importantly, competing with our regional CTE centers is not a good practice in my opinion.
Do those early childhood education CTE classes accept babies? Like, do they have children that are monitored and they take care of?
I have firsthand, did your kids? Preschool. So My kids went to preschool.
I don't think they have it.
I was like 4 years old or something like that, 4 or 5 years old.
So this is actually something that came up at the New Hampshire School Board Association delegates meeting this past Saturday. Jaffrey Branch actually won the School Board of Excellence Award, and I watched that presentation and I legitimately said to the woman who gave the presentation, "You're the school board I want to be when I grow up," because they are very similar in size. They actually have done things like this. Part of their retention practice is to open up a daycare for teachers' children.
Yes.
And they bring their kids in, and they've started bringing their CTE in-house, and they've actually reduced their budget. They're looking at things like their health insurance, and they're moving, they are moving their health costs down. They switched from an HMO to a consumer-driven model. I haven't done enough research on that to be able to sort of speak to that with any sort of confidence, but they do a cost per pupil analysis for the select boards too. That's something that they were able to present to their select boards when they started doing that, but they're bringing their CTE program, they're retaining teachers by having those daycare centers, and that's part of their CTE program. So they offer it for a fraction of the cost. They figure out a little bit more about it, but I don't have the slides for it yet. They haven't sent those around, but it was an enlightening presentation that she gave. So all of these things that we're bringing up that we're saying that we can't do, they actually have done it and did bring down their costs.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, I'm not looking to replicate the same program that's being offered at the CTE center. Getting creative, I do think that's a great idea, being able to bring in a daycare facility for our staff in-house. That's a wonderful idea.
Because people are going to Jaffrey Ridge specifically for it.
Exactly, so that I would highly support, quite honestly. I think it'd be a great.
She said it was like off the cafeteria in their high school, so their high school and their middle school are connected. It's off the cafeteria in their high school, and literally people will go on their lunches and just school at the evenings.
Absolutely. I would support that and get creative in doing that. My point is, we don't want to replicate the same program that's right up the road. If we're going to get creative, let's get creative in the essence of the word.
It's only teachers.
Right, no, I'm saying,
Or and administrators.
The other, like, who we're looking at, whoever does it, like, would they accept children our teachers as part of that program since we pay so much?
I like the in-house ideas. We've lost candidates because they struggle with daycare.
I wonder if they would be willing to accept a lower paying job because they have to pay.
She specifically said that people were willing to take less money because the daycare was in-house.
So I appreciate that, Alice, for giving an opportunity to clarify what I was saying. That's what it is.
Any other ideas?
So going from the 3.2 last year to the 2.5 is gonna save around $37,000, right? And the 63,000 here, the increase, it was including that extra 5% that if you guys decided to increase the contribution, right? So that's a couple $1,000 if you decide not to have that contribution up of that 65. Right? And the staff that is not currently filled in, I know the special ed is the ones that are the hardest sometimes to fill in, right?
Yes.
What is the good faith effort that the district has to put in? Because at the end of this whole budget, all the positions are bottom line budget, right? So what is the good faith effort as far as funding that position that you're supposed to have? can you do 90% of funding that position, since we know that a lot of those positions are never gonna get filled in because, you know, they've been not there for a long time.
Well, one of the problems we have, if they're one-to-one behaviorals, we are now having to contract out with a service provider, and it's costing us more money. So it's actually going to cost us more than what we have on those open positions.
On the service provider, you mentioned they were having a couple hundred too. But if they already hire, what that person working for them is making less than obviously what they're paying. And when you need to fill those positions, I don't know how much you look at usually, but okay, if they can hire a person, then what do we as a person offer and hire a person who actually not getting more?
So we can't hire someone who we're under contract. Let me rephrase that. We could hire whoever they have filled the position with, but we would have to pay the penalty, which is like
No, I'm not saying.
But I don't know what they're paying for an hourly rate.
Right.
I don't have that information. But again, we look at that, we looked at different proposals and different rates. We obviously, in my opinion, need to increase our starting pay, or that's one of the reasons that we proposed paying more towards the health insurance, because that is actually more of an in-the-pocket benefit, because they're not paying the FICA, the taxes, and all of that. So it's one of those, it's a combination. Yes, we wanted to bump up some of the salary, but increasing the health insurance is more of a benefit to them as far as money in their pocket.
So the industry I work in, the markup for a contractor is a multiplier of about 2 million. And you don't necessarily have to know what individuals need to pay. I don't think you have to really have figured out the markup, the multiplier typical for the type of contractor. But I would tell you, I'm used to 16.5%, which is technical areas, but we're also talking services. So I just, I think what you're bringing up is an interesting point. You kind of do the back math and say, all right, well, what do we really need to offer? And does that save money? And the answer is you use my first half hours. Right.
Well, I think we should look at the vacancy report again around, is there any, I don't know. Because I agree that we continue to carry vacancies, but I don't want to pay contracted services either because of the markup, but we can't attract a candidate.
The comment about contracted services, are we paying them right now for one-on-one?
Yes.
Yes.
Every one-on-ones, we're contracting out for those services.
So we have 3 vacancies right now. We're contracting out 3.
No, we have more than 3 that we're contracting out right now.
Those vacancies are not contracted out, but they're still vacancies. We contracted out a one-to-one behavioral, focusing on the contracted services, only one-to-one behaviorals and one-to-one assistants. They're 2 different categories. If you can't find somebody, we're contracting that out at a higher cost to the district because those are required in students' IEP.
So the positions that are required, that we are contracting out, we should be able to do some analysis as to what we're paying for the contract versus what we're offering in-house position. And without just ballparking off the top of my head, can we find a middle ground somewhere to bring people in-house, pay them, so we don't have to? We should be able to.
And I did when we first were looking at them, I said, okay, this is what it would cost us to hire somebody, include all the benefits, because we have to pay all those. I don't know if they get offered health insurance, I don't know if they get what they get for benefits. They may get a higher hourly rate without those other benefits. They may not get paid 6 times.
So we need to know that.
Right.
So if
for the school psychologist that's been open for 2 years, we're contracting that out?
Yes.
And as we spend money on that contracted services, do we move money from the open position salary, benefits vehicle, to kind of like do that through?
We don't move the money, we overspend the contracted service line.
And understand the salary.
And understand the
So you
salary.
can actually see. So instead of moving it, in which case, you wouldn't see it.
Okay. So if like it's $100,000, it's gonna be like zero for a salary benefit and contract service for the $100,000.
Right. So if you look at psychologists, is there a way to look at what psychologists can pay on that one particular thing? So in my opinion, I'm still working full time, we were able to go out and pay for a subscription fee. We basically get a range where type in the date we're looking for things. So we had a reasonable idea of what to offer. I don't know if that kind of service is available. We gauge it, and then the folks point you know, okay, I can see what I got to pay for benefits versus the contract price. It's probably get pretty close to what we be competitive if we make a financial decision.
Yeah, I don't know if there's that service available, but I know Tanya, the Director of Student Services, will often check around to see what is the going rate for psychologists. We were able to fill, because we had more than one open before, but this one has been difficult to fill.
You're on the average of the upper 80s to mid-90s.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I don't know.
It's much higher than that for contracted service provider.
I mean, if I were a, well, I can't say that he's a special person for the consulting agency, but personally, I'd rather work for steady around with firefighters.
So I believe, and I just checked, school psychologists are on the shortage list, so that's, yeah, just about every position, yeah. So you're gonna bring us anything else for by the 29th? So when we
I would suggest that you set some type of a timeline, deadline, whatever. If any board member is looking at the budget going, I'm not sure we need $20,000 a year, even if it's small expense. We should have a point where we have that discussion. After that, we're on as far as, you know, specifically with the rationale sheets. So like if somebody looks at buildings and grounds and says, I think we need to put this off, or we can't do this, or that costs us too much. We should be updating that, and we should do it by a certain point in time.
Do you have a suggestion for us? You want to discuss it next week with budgets? Next week is 10/29.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we go through what people think with the, I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that a big piece of salary and benefits, rationale sheets, and overall budget is small. But if there's any questions or concerns that should be raised, probably should be raised by us administrators, but we're gonna, use the word cut, we're gonna cut anything, we should discuss it next week.
For the, yeah, the rational sheets. All right.
Unrelated to staffing, we're done talking about that.
Yes.
Unrelated to staffing,
Yeah.
going back to the robotics, I talked to Mark on the side, but my question in my mind is whatever decision the board reaches, decide to somehow figure out how to fund that group, what makes them different than other clubs or whatever? Why do they get that substantial amount of funding? So we just ask you to consider that, and I get wanting to be up here, but if there's other extracurricular activities or clubs worthwhile to fund, maybe the answer is, well, okay, here's what we're going to give you. And I realize you have the deliberative session of hunting, and this lady's very good at selling her program. I sort of play compliments for that. But it did strike me as that's going to suck a lot of resources, and it's fine if the board decides where to put them, but that means you're starting other groups, right?
So I thought about that too. Sean, I think you kind of brought it up, like the sports and stuff. But so like, I would like to see other co-curriculars like come to the table with kind of goals and what they want to see, what they need. Everybody has the opportunity. So I do feel like if people are doing stuff in the summer and we don't know about, like they should be compensated for it. If they're doing stuff year round, they should be compensated for it correctly. I get like some things are maybe like an hour a week.
I didn't say she didn't have a valid argument.
No, I'm saying yours. Like,
you focus on that one group. I asked the question, well, are there other groups that should get equal consideration? And then is the pie big enough everybody gets what they want, or you got to kind of tell people they got to take a smaller slice so that you can fund at some level if you want to try to fund all groups or whatever groups you decide.
And I think why the discussion about that exists is because what robotics and the whole VEX platform brings to the table for students. It's not just playing with some plastic pieces after school. It's problem solving, it's teamwork, it's coding, it's mechanical, it's design, it's CAD. There's a ton of life skills built into that program.
Again, I don't want to dominate. I'm not, whatever decision you reach, I'm just giving you that perspective here.
I totally understand. Thank you. So, that's going to be a discussion this group will also have. So, on the 12th, it'll come back with some budget numbers, and then we need to think about what we want to do.
Yeah.
So.
It's a good thing for next week is solely budget. Nothing else on the agenda for Tuesday meetings.
All right, thank you. Okay, on the horizon. Just keeping me on track here. We're gazing upon the horizon. Anything?
Great, you want 5:30 on November 12th for open ground again?
Yes, please.
All right, 5:30, yes, building grounds. On November 12th.
So on November 12th, we have on the VHS class sizes. I know Mark has mentioned this, I know I mentioned a few people, but I assume Mr. Finch will be here to talk about that. The block scheduling has come up on occasion. I guess I'd like to have a more thorough discussion on why our schedule works for us, the way we do it. In the back of my head, I'm wondering if there's a way we can utilize our staffing to offer more options for students, class options. I have in the back of my head, we're going to have 70 students that potentially are going to be at the units, 35 in the morning, 35 in the afternoon. And what does the school look like? If the class sizes are small, can we put 2 classes of 5 into a class of 10 and offer a different class? I don't know what the cut people, positions, anything like that, I'm looking to maybe rearrange how we offer things. That's even a crazy possibility. And I don't know how we schedule, we have software for class scheduling. I just think a bigger discussion on that would be helpful for me personally. So I would propose, say, expanding that topic from general discussion.
Revisiting it.
You don't have to do it on 12 months.
Thoughts?
I agree.
Are we having an SAS report that night?
It also says number 12 student representatives. Are we getting our high school and middle school board members back?
Yeah. Well, the first meeting will be around 12.
Okay, anything else? All right. Volunteer list.
Motion is that the volunteer list be noted section.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, motion carries. Okay, internal policy.
This is a second reading for all of these policies. We can talk about these at the last board meeting. Have you answered any questions about that in the morning?
Questions?
So you may as well get it on the table, right?
Motion to approve internal policy updates, EFD, EGA, EGAA, EH, and EHB as presented.
Thank you for doing them all at once, so rather than doing.
Second.
Discussion?
Was there anything last?
No. Just making sure that the non-food, whatever. Yeah. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Appendix B nomination, it looks like there's 2, 3, 2. They can be done in public unless there's something of a personnel nature.
Accept the Appendix B Nominations.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Public comment. Okay, seeing none.
I'll make a motion